hear the voice of Jesus calling. My answer is, I will go. I see the need of people crying. My answer is, I will go. I go to share the message of love. I go to share the blessed hope. But if I get discouraged, I call to Jesus' help, because I have decided I will go.
Okay, I want to welcome everyone here today. Sabbath school is on, and we're here, and we love to be here in God's house. Isn't that right? He's blessed us so much. So, as our normal thing we're doing now, we're going to have a little segment on our missions, our global missions. So we will go ahead and do that at this time. So just pay attention to the screen.
Aya wanted to create a fun and safe space for kids in Tokyo, but it would take a miracle to be able to afford a new house.
If my daughter has a bad day at school, when she comes here after, she feels so much better.
It's really fun to play with other kids, talk, and eat together. That's why I come.
About 2 years ago, a friend invited Aki to play after school, and she's been coming ever since. Now Aya hosts children in her home at least twice a week. They play, talk, eat, and learn about God. And for many of the children, this is where they hear about Jesus for the first time. The challenge of spreading the gospel in one of the world's largest cities is intimidating. To reach everyone in Tokyo, every church member here would have to minister to about 10,000 people. So each person who walks through Aya's door is a blessing. The house sits next to a beautiful park where kids can play and easily visit Aya's home. The bottom level is an open space, perfect for their events. But this space is more than just a place to get together. It's a space where kids can just be kids. They feel safe enough to open up. In some cases, this is the only place where they aren't judged or criticized for sharing their problems and feelings. They go to Aya for mentorship and to ask for advice. This all started 2 years ago, when Aya felt a need for something more than her daily routine. She visited a mother's support group, and someone in the group recommended that Aya connect with another woman named Sachiko. The two quickly became friends. Sachiko brought her kids to Aya's home, and they made it a regular event.
The second week, third week, fourth week, the kids were coming to play. Then other kids started showing up. We didn't advertise at all. Eventually, a lot of kids came, and we were meeting in my tiny home.
Each time, the kids played, and Sachiko and Aya shared something from the Bible. Aya contacted the parents to let them know where their kids were and what was happening. 20 or so kids came regularly, and they squeezed into her small apartment. Many of the kids were bullied at school or felt as if they didn't belong, so this became one of the most important times of the week for them. Even Aya's husband wasn't Christian, but he saw the positive impact the ministry had on the kids. Sachiko and Aya started renting a community hall 4 times a month, but they wanted to meet twice as often as that. So Aya prayed for God to provide a new meeting place. She was also praying for a new home since her apartment contract was ending. One day, she walked by a house for sale, but thought it would be impossible to buy it because real estate in Tokyo is so expensive. But Aya's husband came home one day with some good news. He told her that his new job would allow them to afford the home they wanted to use for ministry.
This was God's voice speaking to me. The location is good, the money was taken care of, and God was providing everything.
Since that day, Aya has dedicated the space to serving her community. She loves the families who gather in her home. But she knows the work doesn't end there. Millions of people who live in Tokyo are largely unreached. The challenge of this busy urban environment makes it a priority for our prayers and efforts. Pray that people like Aya will find ways to connect with families throughout Tokyo. Thank you for supporting Mission.
Okay, it's always good to see what's going on in other places, and Tokyo is definitely a mission for everyone here, isn't it? So it's good to have you here. We're on Isaiah this quarter. We're on lesson 11. We got 2 more. After that, we've got our new quarterlies in. So if you want one for the second quarter of the year, it's on the God's everlasting covenant. It's called the promise. So it ought to be interesting. 13 weeks of looking at what God has in store for us through his covenant. So I'm looking forward to that one coming up. So we can get that. I guess you can just get this from Ruby. And if you need a larger edition from some of you that don't have as good as eyes, we can have that too. So basically, let's go ahead. What we're looking at this time, and what we're doing is going over Isaiah 55 and Isaiah 58. These are 2 amazing passages in the whole Bible. It's alluded to many times in the New Testament by Jesus himself. He reverts back and starts quoting Isaiah 58. So you can see how important it was that we go over this as well. Some people make a distinction between the Old and the New Testament. God is the author of the whole thing, right? Jesus is the author of the whole thing. He used different people to say what he wanted them to say at that time. He is the author. And he shows that by he's going back and saying, this is why I said this now. It was said back in Isaiah, same thing. Well, we have a nugget usually to start out with. This one is going to be a sort of an inspirational nugget to you. I just want to go over just sort of an amazing fact here. Violet was her name, and in 1903 she sailed from England to Argentina. Fell in love with the sea. She thought she wanted a job on the sea, so she did. She went to the White Star Line, and that was, I don't know if you remember the White Star Line. They made 3 ships, big ocean liners, luxury ocean liners, called the Olympic, the Britannica, and then the Titanic. Well, she started out her career, 21 years old, on the Olympic. The Olympic had a little problem. It ran into another ship. It was going down. Didn't all the way sink, but that was one of the White Star Line's ships. Amazing. She transferred in 1912 to the Titanic. She was on board when that went down, and she was saved by one of the crew members saying, you take care of this kid. I don't know where the mother is. Take it into the life raft number 16. She watched the whole thing there and was saved from the Titanic going down. The third ship was the Britannica of the White Star Line. It was commissioned in World War I to go to help in the cause. It was a troop ship, a medical ship. It was hit a mine, it sank, she had to jump off, and she hit her head on and it said as the ship went down, it sucked everything down. Hit her head on the stern, but she lived and ended up living in England to a ripe old age. So the thing is on this, we want to get an example, an object lesson here. Paul was another one who had 3 shipwrecks. And it says in 2 Corinthians 11, 24 to 25, and I am quoting the verse here, of the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes, save 1. Thrice I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. Thrice I was shipwrecked. A day and a night I have been in the deep. Interesting. Paul was shipwrecked 3 times as well and made it. And I guess what I want to bring out in this is we all have shipwrecks in our life. Isn't that right? We all have things that we don't think is going to happen that happen. And they do on all of us, like it or not, want it or not. But God is able to work those things to advantage. If we look at that and not get down on ourselves, but he says, what do I need to learn out of this situation? Amen? So I just wanted to put that in there as our little nugget for today, so we can all look at that. Waging love is the title of this lesson. Waging love. That's a sort of a catchy way to say it. Waging love. And again, it's on Isaiah 55 and 58. What we're doing is, I want to go over 3 main points. I found out that I can't handle more than 3 points to remember. So when they ask you, what was Sabbath school about? And you say, well, I don't really know. We went over, I'm not sure. But if you take 3 points away, you've got something here. And here they are. 3 points. Salvation is a free gift that will cost you everything. It's a free gift that will cost you everything. We'll go into that. Don't worry. Number 2, evangelism is always successful. Okay, you might question that one as well. You're probably questioning 2 of them right now. The third one is get full by fasting. So these are the 3 things I want you to take away. Okay? Salvation is a free gift, but it will cost you everything. Evangelism is always successful. Always successful. I'm not saying this. God said it. So we'll get into that one too. And get full by fasting. All of these seem a little dichotomy into them, but waging love seems that way as well, doesn't it? Let's start out Isaiah 55, 1 to 3. If we can have somebody with the mic. We have somebody with the mic back there ready to help us out. I think we're on top of this. I'm hopefully you're on top of this. We're going to start out by reading Isaiah 55, 1 to 3. Who would like to read that? Okay, we got somebody up here on the front. If we can get the mic up here, and we're ready to go. Thank you for that. So these are tremendous texts, these verses here in 55 and 58, Isaiah.
1 through
3.
Okay. Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. And you who have no money, come, buy and eat. Yes, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you spend money for what is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me, and eat what is good, and let your soul delight itself in abundance. Incline your ear and come to me. Hear, and your soul shall live. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, the sure mercies of David.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Come. It says come. Is this an invitation from God? Come. He keeps saying come. It says it in the New Testament. Let's come. Please, I stand at the door and knock. Please, come. So what is he saying? All that you are thirsty. Why are we talking about literal water here? Are we talking about a spiritual situation here? Okay, we're saying spiritual here, and I think it can also be physical to some degree too, because he's going to supply all of our needs, isn't he? If we're in need of something, he knows. He wants to supply that. But you're right. Spiritual is, how do you say that? Why do you say that? Are you have anything to go by on that, or are you just saying that? We got one to comment over here. Why do you think this is spiritual? It says if you're thirsty.
It's spiritual because when I was in natural, I didn't see it like this. Mm-hmm. But when I got into the Word and started reading it and accepting it, what God said, then I found out it was spiritual.
Okay, very good. Do you have any texts that you could... did Jesus say anything about the spiritual water? Who is the spiritual water? What is that? What is that? What's the bread of life, food, the spiritual water? Isn't that Jesus? Yes, it is. It is, doesn't he say? How about the woman at the well? You remember this story. This Samaritan woman came to the well, and he said, well, you can drop here. If you can drink this water, you're going to thirst again. But if you drink the water that I have, you won't thirst, but it'll spring up to everlasting life. Right? So he's saying that he's the water. You drink from what I have. You eat what from I have. You're not going to be hungry again. You're not going to thirst again. Is that right? Okay. And you that have no money, what does this cost? You that have no money. It says, come. That's what it says, right? Okay. So it says, you that have no money, come. And then it says, buy and eat. You don't have any money, but you're just going to buy this. Did they make a mistake here? I thought it was free, but he wants you to buy and eat without any money. Any comments on that? Doesn't that just strike you as a little unusual to say, you don't have any money, but you need to buy this and eat? What do you think? It says, come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. The wine is more of a harvest. What happened in the harvest, you get a bountiful harvest, you get the grapes coming in. The milk is for the cattle. You have you're bountiful there. You've got blessings from the food, from the drink. But it says you need to buy this. And then it says in verse 2, why do you spend money on things that are not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? What is he talking about here? Here he says, wants you to come buy from me without money. And why are you spending your money on things that aren't satisfying? Anybody have a comment on that? What are we talking about? Of course, we're talking spiritually here. Okay, you have a comment over here.
It was natural, in my natural mind, so I was doing the things of the world.
Okay.
And not the things of Jesus.
Okay.
So I kept doing that. I kept going to movies and things like this and dancing and all.
Okay,
in the world.
so you're saying right now, spend money on things that aren't bread.
Yes.
So why you're spending things that do not satisfy?
Yes. And I had to pay for that to get inside the
Okay. Are there a lot of things that we can spend money, time on things that do not satisfy? Are we doing that? Is that the tenor of us humans? Is that how we were born? That we have a tendency to gravitate to what the world thinks is important and fun and fulfilling? What are some of those things? You don't have to give yourself away, because we all have our problems. But what does the world look as a way to satisfy? Okay, alcohol, drinking alcohol. Anybody think else? Drugs, gambling, job, materialism.
Yes, materialism.
That sports car.
Yes.
Well,
They
we don't want to
still
go
got
too
it
far
today.
here, but you get the idea.
Yes.
The world has a lot of different things, don't they, to satisfy. They try to satisfy. But it says, why are you spending money on that? It's not going to satisfy you. Listen, it says in verse 2 again, listen to me and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare. Give ear and come to me and listen that you may live. Eat what I have to offer you, is what he's saying, right? But yes, go ahead. We got a comment over here, if we'd like to have that. Appreciate your comments. It's good to have. Yeah.
The lesson points out, it says, for those who don't have a lesson, I'll read it. Isaiah appeals to the people to accept forgiveness. That's Isaiah 55:7, to accept forgiveness freely. Yet the word by emphasizes that what God offers people to meet their needs and desires is valuable. So receiving it requires a transfer of something of worth. God freely offers forgiveness within the framework of a restored covenant relationship with his people, but not because it was free for him, He bought it at a terrible blood-drenched price of his own servant. Though free, it came at an astonishing cost to him.
There we're getting into it. It says buy from it. So it's not free. It's free to us, but was it free to God? He paid the price, didn't he? That price of God gave his son to die for us. Yeah, we have a comment over here.
I hope I didn't stick around enough. Our lesson points out that God emphasized the buy to let people know that it's valuable, what he has to give them. It's not just something that you can just get of no value.
It's valuable.
So it's highly valuable. That's why he said, come and buy. Emphasize that point.
It is valuable. That's a great point. It is valuable. That's why you need to buy it, purchase it. But we can't purchase it ourselves. It's already been purchased. So it's sort of a concept here that's unusual. Salvation is free, but it will cost you everything. Doesn't sound free to me. It's going to cost you everything. Now you're saying you have to give up something. What is the cost? I don't know if you've heard of a person, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He wrote The Cost of Discipleship. Amazing book. He was back in World War II. He was put in the prison camp by the Germans and later killed for his beliefs. He wrote the cost of discipleship. So there is a cost, but it's still free. Let's go to Ephesians 2, 8, and 9. Who would like to read that? It's a famous one. We don't want to get into the salvation by works thing, so we want to quickly squelch that and go to, yes, Thelma. We'll have Thelma read that one, Ephesians 2, 8, and 9.
For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Not of works, lest anyone should boast.
Okay, so it's not of works. It's a free gift, but it'll still cost you everything. Could somebody summarize that, what that cost is to us if we're going to do that, but still in the context, it's a free gift from God. What do we have to do to give up everything? Yeah, we got another comment right over here.
My family and all to get Jesus in my life.
Good.
So when I did that, he had blessed me mightily.
Yeah.
Because he sent me to people that I could help with the word of God.
Yeah,
and do his will.
In the New Testament, it says, if you take this as predominance over me, you're not worthy of me, even if it's family. You're not worthy of me. So I think I want to illustrate this ways. I had a girl that was 2 at the time, 2 or 3, something like that. She had a favorite little animal she carried around with her all the time. Couldn't separate her from this little animal. I mean, it got so ragged and dirty and gross. But anyway, she loved it, and she'd go to bed with it and hold it, and it would mean everything to her. I came to her one time. She's holding her little animal again, and it was a big toy. It took 2 hands to go ahead and get this toy to play with. And her eyes were lighting up. This is going to be great. But then I gave it to her, but her animal here. But she couldn't get the whole thing unless she put her little animal down, her little thing down. And so you can see what she was thinking. You can do that in little kids. You can see what they're thinking a little bit. Not all the time. But she was trying to figure out how she could get this and hold on to her little stuffed animal. And after a while, she couldn't figure out how to do it. She couldn't lay it down. And then this breaks her heart as a parent. A little tear comes in her eye because she wanted to play with that thing so bad, but she didn't want to put down her little stuffed animal. Are we like that? What is it? What is our stuffed animal in our life? God asks us to put everything down for him, but what he's going to give us is so much more. Okay, so that stuffed animal, we've gone through some of the different things, whether it be a job, materialism, relationship, alcohol dependence, drug dependence, whatever it is in everybody's life, they don't want to put it down to get something that is so much greater. How do we do that ourselves, and how do we get that message across to somebody else? I've got something that's so much greater than what you've got. That's a nice stuffed animal and all, I get it. But it's so much greater. How do you witness to somebody and say something like that? You know what I'm talking about here. You can see maybe what they're not wanting to give up. First of all, my little girl couldn't keep her stuffed animal and go for the bigger thing that was really a lot better. She couldn't do it without laying down her animal. She wanted to keep both of them. Is it possible in our lives to hold on to both? It's not, is it? He asks for a total commitment, doesn't he? He wants us to lay down our stuffed animal to get something so much greater. How do you go about, let's say you have loved ones, how do you get that across to them? There's something so much greater. Because, in this life, we've heard the comment, one in the hand is worth two in the bush. You've heard that sort of a saying. I don't know who came up with that. Maybe Ben Franklin. Sounds like something, Ben Franklin came up with a lot of good ones. It's saying, if you got something sure, go for it. I don't care if it's even more valuable later on. If you got it right now, go for it. But that doesn't hold here, does it? Is it the case that maybe we don't know the value of that gift? Or we underestimate that value of the gift? Or we have to say, well, I can have both. I want it all. I can hold on to my stuffed animal and still have that gift. What would you do? Yeah, we got a comment over here. We got the mic in the back. We're looking for the mic in the back. Thank you. All right, over here.
One of the questions that the lesson points out, and you mentioned also, is what is the price for our salvation? And I think, personally, as humans, we cannot understand that price fully. We cannot, it can't be measured. There's nothing, it'll take eternity for us to figure out exactly what that price was for our salvation. We can't really, in our finite minds, comprehend that.
We can't comprehend it, can we?
No.
It's above what our thoughts can even handle. Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor entered into the thoughts of man, the glories, the wonders, the prize that I have prepared for you. Do we really believe that? Do we really believe that? Because it is of utmost worth. If it costs God the life of his son, it's of utmost worth. So it's something that we have to struggle with, I think, every day. To say, am I going to hold on to the stuffed animal, or am I going to let it go today? Am I going to believe God that he has something that eye has not seen nor ear heard or entered into the thoughts of man? Are we going to believe that? And to what extent are we going to believe that? So let's go through the cost of it here. And I'm going to keep going on. We're in Isaiah 55 right now. It says in verse 6, seek the Lord while he may be found. That's interesting. That means, to me, there's a time when we won't be able to be found. That's sort of scary, isn't it? Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call to him while he is near. And here's the key. Like my little girl didn't want to let that stuffed animal go. It says, let the wicked forsake their ways and the unrighteous their thoughts. Let them return and turn to the Lord, and he will have mercy on their soul. He will have mercy on them. Our number one point is we have three of them, so we got to remember them. Salvation is a free gift, but it will cost you everything. So, I want to go through a little bit about what Jesus had to say on it. Matthew 5 is a Sermon on the Mount. It says, "Blessed are they that do hunger and thirst, for they shall be filled." So we want to come to that living water. We want to come eat from Him. To eat His body, drink His blood. It's sort of an unusual way to put it. And if you're just getting into the Bible for the first time, it says, I can't even think about it. That's out there. The disciples said the same thing. But He wants us to take from Him and come to Him. Well, let's keep going on this. We've got to get to our other talking points as well. And evangelism is always successful. Now, you probably say, now just a second. I know of an evangelistic series I went to a long time ago. We didn't get anybody there. Didn't get anybody. So what do you have to say about that, Wes? Well, I'm not the one that says that because Jesus had said that. If you come to me, He says, I will give you that the goal from which you're thinking. Let's look at verses 8 and 9. Who would like to read that? Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. Okay, go ahead. We got it coming right here for you. 8 and 9.
For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. 9:7. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts.
Okay, so we can't really justify ourselves, well, I'm going to hold on to this because I don't really know what it's like out there. Jesus said right here that I'm so much higher, my thoughts are so much higher. You've got to believe me on this. You've got to trust me on this. I'm not going to let you down. You can go ahead. My thoughts, because it says there is this way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end of which are the ways of death. Even though it seems right, it's not right, is it? The end is the way of death. Well, somebody can argue the point, well, I'm going to enjoy life, go for the gusto here. I really don't know about heaven. Maybe I'll get that too, but I'm going to have what I can get now. And a lot of people say that. But when we're trying to get this across, we have to be evangelistic in nature. We have to get the point across that God can be trusted, that there is something greater out there, that you can put down that stuffed toy. Let's look at verse 11. We're kind of keep going on in Isaiah 55, verse 11. Who has that? Can God be trusted? Okay, we've got this. We're looking at evangelism is always successful. Point number 2.
So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it.
Okay, just a second. This is Jesus talking here in the Bible. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God. He says, my word is not going to return to me empty, but it will accomplish what I have desired. So, point number 2, evangelism is always successful. God says it's not going to return. You sow the seed, and it's going to have a harvest. Isn't that right? So, now what we're saying here is that we're not saying this. God is saying it. If you make the effort, if you sow that seed, it's not going to come back to you empty. I'll give you an example. There was a guy that I knew, I went to church with about 15 years ago. And he says, I was rummaging in the attic. I had just gotten out of prison. I was shooting the gun off my front porch. This is a wild guy. Probably why he was in prison. He said, I was rummaging through the attic of I think it was his mother. Could be his aunt, but he says, I came across a dusty old book in the attic. It was great controversy. And he says, I like to read, interesting thing, great controversy. What is that about? So he starts reading it. And he says, wow, if this is real, this is amazing. And so he kept reading about it. Then he figured out where he could get more insight into what it was saying in that book. That book in the attic led him to Christ. And, this was probably back, 20 years in the attic. Dust all over it. But the Lord knew, didn't he? It wasn't going to come back empty. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I have desired. You could probably think back in your own life. Somebody said something 10 years ago that struck a chord, didn't really cause a change in your attitude or what you're thinking, but it did strike a chord. And then, 10, 15 years later, somebody else said something, and you remember that back there. This is saying the same thing. And I always wondered about that. It's not going to return. It says some it's given to sow, some it's given to reap, but all will benefit in the harvest. Isn't that right? So if we don't think we're doing a bit of good by living our life how God would want us to, let's think again. Let's think again how we minister to others. Yeah. Okay, one part in between. Let's go ahead and get this so we can hear it.
Paul said some sow, some water.
Some work.
Some water.
Water. Yes.
And some reap.
Some reap.
And so we may be watering a seed that was sowed.
I like it.
Rather than reaping.
There's different things that people have talents for. And some might be evangelism, some might be watering, some might be taking cookies over to somebody.
And still bring them to Christ.
Yeah. All will share in the harvest. Isn't that great? So what are we doing? Because we got a promise here that evangelism will always be successful. So we've got a promise here. I didn't say it. Jesus said this. So the third verse, since we're going quickly here, we're going to have to get to chapter 58 because it's so important. Fasting, you can get full by fasting. Let's look at Isaiah 58, 1-5. I will just go ahead and read that. It says, "Shout it aloud, do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their rebellion, and to their descendants of Jacob their sins. For day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what was right, and has not forsaken my commands. They ask me just for the decisions, and seem eager for God to come near them." Verse 3, "Why have you fasted," they say, "and you have not seen it? Why have you humbled yourselves, and you have not noticed? Yet the day of your fasting do you as you please, and exploit all your workers." In other words, you're fasting, but you're still doing all these bad things. What's the deal? Verse 4, "Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife, and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high." Verse 5, "Is this the kind of fast I have chosen?" God's asking us this. Is this what I really have in mind here when I said fast? Only a day for people to humble themselves? Is it only for bowing your head like a reed and for him lying in sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast? Is that what you call the acceptable to God, to the Lord? Obviously, they were doing something wrong here. What was the problem? We're talking about fasting here, but he was admonishing them that this was not the way to do it. But he had something else in plan. We have the mic. Where is the mic? There we go. We got the mic. This lady would like to say something to us here.
I had fast for 3 days. And when I fast for 3 days, I was changed. I didn't eat anything but drink water.
Okay.
And so I was a different person because God was more in me.
Okay, so if you do it right, that God said, let's look at this. Thanks for bringing that up. Matthew 6. This is on the Sermon on the Mount again. They had the wrong idea of fasting. And Jesus is saying what he said back in Isaiah too, he's saying again, and this is Matthew 6:16 to 18. He says, "Moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear to men to fast. They want recognition. Hey, I'm pretty holy and righteous here." Got a comment. I'll go ahead and finish this. "But verily I say, they have their reward. But thou, when you fast, anoint thy head, wash thy face, that you appear not unto men to fast, but unto your Father which is in secret, and your Father which seeth in secret shall reward you openly." Yes, go ahead.
Exactly. It was all for show. It was outwardly. It wasn't inward. It was just all for show.
So their motive is wrong.
I'm sorry?
Their motive is wrong.
Yes.
They were doing it for the wrong reasons. They were doing it to look pious, righteous.
Exactly, yes.
Do we have the same problem today? Maybe it might not be with fasting, but other things that we may do to maybe look like we're righteous. We have to watch this. So what is our motive for what we're doing? What is our motive for why we're here? What's the motive for why we came to church today? What is the motive for, if you look at the Sermon on the Mount, the same thing right before it goes into the fasting, it says, when you do your alms or when you give gifts, when you do good deeds, don't let anybody else, don't send the trumpet out and proclaim what you've just done. It says, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So if your motive is to get recognition, I'm pretty hot and I'm good and I'm righteous and I'm giving all this money, so look at me, then you have no reward in heaven. It says you have no reward in heaven. It says not to do those things. It says when you fast, God expects you to give alms and fast. The other one it says, since we're on this, in Matthew 6, it says when you pray, do not have this verbose long prayer, is what he's saying. It says to get attention of men. So some people wax elegant maybe and have a long prayer, but he says don't do that. He says when you pray, enter into your closet. And when you have shut the door, pray to your Father which is in heaven. And your Father which seeth in secret shall reward you openly. So when you're doing good deeds, when you're praying to God, when you're fasting, what's your motive? And that's what we're getting at here. So when you fast, we need to watch that. When we do anything, we need to watch that. But to get full by fasting. And it goes on next in this to say different things that he had done when he's talking about fasting. And that's being acts of kindness. He'd rather have us do acts of kindness for the right reason than to outwardly fast and show that. So I want to end here on one thing that's the last two verses of Isaiah 58. Let's go and look at that. Who would like to read that? Can anybody read the last two verses of Isaiah 58? Yes, go ahead. We have man.
If you will turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasures on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and shall honor him, not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words, then you shall delight yourself in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride on the high hills of the earth, and feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father. The mouth of the Lord has spoken.
Okay. It ends this tremendous chapter, chapter 58, by talking about the Sabbath. And the key thing that I get out of this is delighting yourself in the Lord. It's been talking about having the wrong motive throughout here. Having the wrong motive for doing this fasting. Having the wrong motive here. What is your motive? What is your motive for keeping the Sabbath? First of all, should we keep the Sabbath holy? Yeah. Now, how you do that, what is your motive for how you do it? Is it become a tradition like it was to the Pharisees? It can be, can't it? Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of people think in reading the fourth commandment, they think that keeping the Sabbath is 6 days shall I labor and do all thy work. Don't do any work on the Sabbath. It's how you keep it holy. But there's 2 commands in that 4th commandment. One is to keep it holy. And number 2 is don't do your own work. It doesn't say don't do any work. You do the Lord's work on that day, as Jesus pointed out. But we think just by not working, we're keeping the Sabbath holy. And we can go, as Spirit of Prophecy points out, we can talk about anything on the Sabbath. We get to church and we discuss anything, and it's fine because we aren't working. And that's why I love this text. Jesus tells us how to keep it holy.
Yes. And a couple verses, a couple words in this that you read in Isaiah that's really good in this passage. It says, delight. He wants us to delight in it. It shouldn't be a burden. And I had some people come to me one time, or more than one time, you probably have too, said, well, you can't do that on Sabbath, can you? Have you had anybody say that? Well, you can't do that on Sabbath. Whoa. So they've got the wrong idea, or is it the way we come across? Oh, I can't do that on Sabbath. Well, then they're going to get that, can't they? But how do we look at it? What is the reason we do what we do? And I think we have to ask ourselves that every day, don't we? Because if you come to Jesus, you say, let me have your wisdom, your guidance. Let me do the right things for the right reasons. Let me delight myself in the Lord. And before it says to be repairers of the breach. I got to hit this because this is such a good part of it. He's calling us in the last days to be fill up that part that's been torn down. Specifically, we see that in Ellen White's writings about talking about the Sabbath, how the spurious Sabbath came in. And we are supposed to be repairers of the breach. Repairers, in other words, make it known. Be the work of an evangelist. It won't come back to you empty. Our three keys. It's always the keys here. 3 keys to take away. Salvation is a free gift. That will cost you everything. Salvation is a free gift that will cost you everything. Evangelism is always successful. God said it. It might not be in our timing. We might find in heaven. You know, when you said that in this period of my life, that really made an impact, which later bore fruit 25 years later. I wanted to just tell you that. So, evangelism is always successful. Get full by fasting. We can have that fullness of joy and that peace if we do it the right way, isn't it? What is our motive? What is our motive for Sabbath, keeping it holy? What is our motive for fasting? What is our motive for giving gifts? What is our motive for praying? Go down the list. And it should be love for God, shouldn't it be? It shouldn't be outward display at all. So let's pray as we end our Sabbath school. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you. These verses in Isaiah are so rich. You said the same thing because you said it in the New Testament, but you said it in the Old Testament too. You did it through different prophets, but it was you talking to us. Thank you that you've given us these insights, these ways that we can look back and see what you have, and what problems we may encounter, and then look to you. We thank you for your love and your salvation, which is a free gift of God. In Jesus' name, amen.